Welcome back to the Vibrant Soulful Wellness Podcast, a space for simple ideas, practical strategies, and meaningful practices to support more vibrant, soulful living at work and in life. I'm your host, Annie Barrett. For over 25 years, I've guided individuals, groups, and workplaces toward greater well-being and fulfillment, quantum life coaching, lifestyle medicine, habit change science, mindfulness, Ayurveda, and yoga. Each episode offers grounded, accessible reflections and tools that you can actually use without adding more to your already full life. I am glad you're here. And this episode comes to you from Peru, where I am spending a month having a personal retreat and thinking about the big questions in my own life. This week, I'm thinking about vitality and purpose. I've been teaching yoga here from Peru, and we've been exploring this theme of vitality in yoga class. Just pausing as we move through class, noticing our breath and our energy in our bodies, noticing the life force energy, what we call in yoga prana, this vitality, and recognizing that every day is a little different. Some days we come to our mats and we feel strong and energized. Other days we feel a little fatigued or tight. And some days we might just go through the whole day, not even bothering or checking in with our vitality at all. And so in class throughout this week, I have been asking my students, asking myself as well, we've been journaling on this topic. What is supporting my vitality right now? And we've been using a sentence starter that we used last week. I'm at a time in my life when caring for my vitality looks like, and we consider what caring for our vitality looks like at this time of life that we're in. And the answers are interesting. For some of us, who from my vitality comes from making sure I exercise and my physical strength. It also we might say, well, it's coming from taking care of my sleep, from making sure I have time outside, or just creating more space in my schedule. All of those are really important insights. But the core insight in all of this for me is that our vitality and our purpose are deeply connected. And when we support our vitality, we have the energy to show up fully in our lives, contributing, serving, creating in the ways that we most feel are our domain to do so. And when we're living with that sense of purpose, that energy often grows. So last week, if you listen to my podcast or my blog from last week, I introduced the 4 aims of life. This is a framework from the yoga tradition that offers 4 pillars for a life well lived. And I find it to be a simple and powerful way of thinking about the different dimensions that support a meaningful life. In shorthand, we can think of these 4 A's as our purpose, which may be like our contribution, our creativity, what we're offering to the world, our vitality, which I already spoke about a little bit, and the structures that support our vitality, our joy, and along with joy, our pleasure, taking time for enjoying life, and the last one, our freedom and connection with something bigger. Well, I'm going to go back to the first 2 aims because I find that these are especially important when we think about how we live our lives day to day, week by week. And so, Dharma is the first aim that refers to our purpose or that meaningful contribution that each of us makes in the world. And Artha is the second one that refers to resources and structures that sustain life and refers to the very vitality that we nurture and care for. So Artha we might think of broadly as foundations to support our vitality, things like our physical health, even our financial stability, food, shelter, clothing, the structures that we have that allow us to live, support structures in our lives, rhythms of rest and renewal, all of these that are structures that support life. And if we neglect these foundations, then it actually becomes really difficult to live our dharma, to make a contribution, to sustain what we feel to be our purpose. And I'm thinking about all of this with a midlife lens. I turned 55 a month or so ago, and I recognize that purpose evolves as we go through the seasons of life. So for some of us, purpose may feel a time of life that we're in very professional, related to our career. At other times, our purpose may feel very much tied to the care that we're giving our loved ones and the caretaker responsibilities we have. It also may be connected to our creativity and to the contributions we make in our community. But whatever we find our purpose is at the time of life that we're in, it's definitely not sustained by ideas alone. It requires energy. And I'm calling that energy our vitality. So, as I said, I've been exploring these ideas in my yoga session this week, exploring this connection between vitality and purpose, inviting myself and my students to connect with this feeling of vitality, this hum of our aliveness through our breath and through our bodies, noticing how our energy moves when we feel strong, and also noticing on the days that we feel a little depleted. And then, as I said before, taking a little time to journal and reflect on our vitality at the end of the yoga practice. And doing this day after day, it really reinforces this idea that vitality and purpose are deeply intertwined. And if we want to live our purpose, live our dharma, make our unique contribution or offering to the world, we really have to care for our vitality. When we care for our vitality, we then have the energy to live our purpose. And then when we're living our purpose, we often feel there's even more vitality. It feels like it's kind of this virtuous cycle of vitality begetting purpose, purpose begetting living. But over time, we realize that living well does really require supportive routines and structures to care for our health and well-being at whatever stage we're in. And the more years we travel around the sun, hopefully we become wiser about how we care for our vitality. So I'm in midlife, and for those of us who are in midlife, those of you listening who are in midlife, I would suggest that this is not a time to live on autopilot. If we lived on autopilot in our 20s or 30s, well, we certainly aren't doing that once we're in our 50s or 60s or 70s. Instead, I would argue that midlife is a season of self-stewardship and also of self-authored care. By the time we reach midlife, we have years of lived experience. We've learned things about our bodies, about our energy, and about rhythms that help us thrive, and also about ways that we don't thrive. We also have gifts and talents that the world really needs right now. And so we're called to offer our creativity, our care, make our offering, and to direct our energy in meaningful ways. But if we're going to continue to look for purpose and make this contribution, we absolutely have to step into the role of being our own best caregiver. We have to become stewards, as it were, of our vitality. Because as I said before, this well-being, our vitality, and our purposes are inseparably linked. So I've been thinking about this and musing, and I find that there are 4 ways that we support our vitality. So let's look at these. The first one is certainly our physical vitality, this vessel that we live in, right? And how we care for this physical vessel. So this looks like, perhaps in the yoga class, like grounding and strengthening ourselves, building muscles and bones through yoga practice, through walking, through strength training. All of those are things I really value doing in midlife. It also looks like mobilizing and expanding, stretching and opening so that our body can move through life with greater ease. And then also it's knowing when we just have to pause and replenish and restore our energy rather than spending it. So that might look like resting, it might look like napping, it might look like taking a day off, doing a really gentle yoga practice. So all of those are ways in which we care for our physical vitality. And then I think of energy is even bigger than just our physicality, but it's this mindfulness around how we give of ourselves, right? So physically, but also there's mentally and emotionally, the way we offer ourselves to others. And so I like to use this word energy integrity, and thinking about the integrity that I have with regards to my energy on a given day, and taking the time to pause before automatically saying yes to everything that is asked of me. So instead of saying yes when something comes into my calendar or in my inbox, or can you do this? Would you like to do that? Instead, I check in with myself and ask, okay, let's be real. Do I have energy for this today, this week, this month? And is this request aligned with what matters most to me? Is it aligned with what I can actually do and what I feel like my purpose is? Over time, I think we can learn to place boundaries around our energy and become a lot clearer about what we say yes to and what we say no to. And often finding that clear no, this isn't what I want to do right now, that then leaves much more space for a yes in another domain of my life that feels like really clearly a way I want to spend my time. So over the years of the time that we have on our planet, we can get wiser about how we spend our energy. The third way we can care for our vitality is living in rhythm with nature. Recognizing that our vitality is deeply connected to nature. We do not live outside of nature. We are animals on this planet. So the rhythm of day and night, the rhythm of the seasons, and this is particularly something I've learned through my studies of Ayurveda. When we align ourselves with these rhythms, our bodies and our minds function much more smoothly. What does this look like? Well, for me, it looks like as best as I can, maintaining some daily rhythms for when I wake up, how I move my body, when I eat, when I work, when I rest, when I go to sleep. And also adjusting my routines with the seasons, recognizing that what I eat, how I nourish myself, how I move, how I rest, these are going to change from summer to winter, from fall to spring. So attuning with nature's rhythms is one of the ways that we care for our vitality. And the fourth way is caring for our nervous system, because our vitality is very closely connected with paying attention to our mental and emotional well-being. So over the years, practices like mindfulness, meditation, contemplation, time in nature, these are all ways that I calm and regulate my own nervous system. And I'm guessing many of you listening have you found those strategies to be true for you as well. Over time, these practices help us become more resilient so that we can navigate life's ups and downs and challenges. And often we even grow stronger through them. And I find that when we care for our vitality in these ways, we create conditions that allow for our purpose to flourish. So we're not just languishing in life, we're flourishing. We're not just surviving, but we're thriving. And so I invite you to consider, if you are, as I am, someone in midlife, that midlife actually is a season of refinement. Again, as I said before, we have lived enough years on this planet to recognize what sustains us, what feeds us, and also what drains us, what drains our energy. We have experience, wisdom, and perspective that can guide the way forward. So it's not a time to drift through life on autopilot, right? This is a time when we begin to author our own story, when we begin to live more consciously. This is a season for deepening into our purpose and becoming more attentive stewards of our vitality. So I like to think of this as an invitation to practice what I might call wise living, a learning to care for my body, my energy, and my inner life so I can keep offering my gift to the world with clarity, with strength, with heart. And maybe one of the quiet gifts of midlife is that this is really the opportunity to align our lives more fully with what truly matters. So, if you listen to this, as you know, I love to offer reflections, journaling prompts, something for you to take with you. Here are a few reflections or inquiries that you might think about. The first is what I offered you last week. I'm at a time in my life when ... And I'll add to that by saying, I'm at a time in my life when caring for my vitality looks like, and see what happens there. What does caring for your vitality look like? The second prompt is, how do the current routines and structures in my life support my life? And the third prompt, Where might my vitality be asking for more care or attention now? So again, this gift, the quiet gift of midlife, is you have the opportunity to align your life more fully with what truly matters to you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Vibrant Social Wellness Podcast. I hope you'll come back. If you enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe to wherever you listen: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube. To stay connected, visit my website, vibrantsoulful.com. You can join my newsletter there. You can find links to these episodes and explore additional resources that support your well-being. I appreciate you being here, and I look forward to seeing you next time.